Mark and I and our developers. You all know the problems. We're in a climate crisis that's only getting worse, and we've got affordability issues that are only getting worse. We've got a whole generation locked out of the housing market. The solution is density, but we've stayed out of it for our careers. We haven't done multi-res, and that's mainly because developers just wanted to leverage off our brand, and they were not interested in solutions to the real problems that we have or any innovations that we had to offer. So we've never done it. But it just got to a point where we decided that we have to get involved and we have to get our hands dirty. So we are the developers and the architects of this project. And what was central to what we wanted to achieve was deliberative design. So very much like single residential, we wanted to work with a community to author their homes. We wanted to combat climate change as much as we could. We wanted to be an incredible example of good urbanism. We wanted financial sustainability to be at its core, so not just low prices to buy, but ongoing affordability. And we also wanted to use democratized capital. So what that meant is we went to our past clients and we put out our hand and said, will you help us give people access to good quality housing, ethical housing? So our past clients, bless them, all chipped in 100 grand each and bankrolled this project and bankrolled first-time developers. And Leon as well, bless him, risked his money and chipped in to help fund this project, as did some of our staff and Mark and I. So risk coming out the eyeballs for this one. We found a really amazing landowner who didn't want to sell up to developers because he cared about his suburb, so he partnered with us. The block itself is an incredible spot on Sydney Road in Brunswick, right near Brunswick Baths. I can't point, can I? There's no pointer. Oh, well, I'm trying. Brunswick Baths, right next to the library. There's a beautiful pocket park on Saxon Street and an inundation of green transport options, trains, buses, trams. The site itself is weird though. It's 10 metres wide by 57 metres long, with no northern orientation. And so we could only fit 4 very long homes on each level, and they faced outwards to the east and the west. So one of our key moves was to put solar blinds on the east and west, not just protecting the glazing, but right out on the edge of the balcony. So it protected the entire balcony from the summer sun, which is vastly different to almost every apartment building you see in Melbourne, where you have all of this unchecked glazing just being heat sinks, demanding that air conditioning is used through, almost throughout the year. Saxon Street itself has got a really troubled history, a lot of crime along that street. So we've deliberately brought the residents in off Saxon Street to create a lot of passive surveillance and a lot of activity on that street. Working alongside council, who's doing the same, greening that street to try and turn into a real pedestrian place. In terms of language of the building, we wanted this to be a love letter to the unloved ethnic houses of the northern suburbs. So many of these properties are being bought for land value, and these resilient, robust masonry homes are being knocked down without a thought because they're not fashionable at the moment. So there's this incredible ethnic history to the northern suburbs that we wanted to acknowledge, as well as if you go along Sydney Road, you will see all these really quirky, beautiful arches with these deep balconies coming off them all the way along the street. And it's eclectic and strange and wonderful. And we wanted to be part of that discussion. And the big issue for us was in this 2-story context, how do you put a 6-story building and have a conversation? Does it have to be like all of the other buildings in the immediate vicinity? They're all grey boxes that look like they could be anywhere. Or can we actually have some sort of dialogue? Recycled brick up to 11 metres, having a discussion with the 2 heritage facades, and then mesh arches where over time we hope that that'll become these beautiful green arches, giving back some greenery to the suburb. But long before we built the building, we actually built the community. So these people have been with us for years. There's policemen, there's school teachers, there's people that work in sustainability, there's artists, there's people that work at the NGV that have been trying to access housing and being outstripped by the market. But the one thing that was almost unanimous was family homes. And all of them said that all of the apartment stock that was anywhere near their price range was not suitable for families. And they knew the problem of living in an old home in Brunswick or in the northern suburbs, and the affordability and the thermal issues of doing that. So what we did, our innovative move, was to use a traditional terrace house plan and just stack it 6 stories high and embrace the corridor. We keep getting told the corridors are inefficient, but corridors are useful in terms of getting active spaces and quiet spaces apart and getting different zones within a house. And if we look at a good apartment plan, it's all about getting rid of the corridor. But then what happens is you end up with apartments, the quiet parts of apartments directly opening onto really active parts of apartments. So if you've got young kids or people trying to sleep or study, you interrupt each other. And I don't care what anybody says, that's a corridor, but it's being sold by real estate agents as usable living space when it's not. It's a corridor space. Beyond that, you've also got the common areas, which you can't sell. So these get crushed down into these dystopian internalized spaces where you wouldn't want to run into your neighbor in these spaces. And our big move here was to actually get the common spaces and stretch them apart so that they acted like front verandas, because that's what for a lot of Australians is missing in apartments, is you don't have this in-between zone where you can have a study space, for example, as we've got at the opening, the front door of every apartment is a study space that opens out onto this shared area. And then these little walkways that become, even though they're common area, they feel like your front veranda. And that's where these beautiful serendipitous moments of community happen, that leaning over the front fence or chatting through a window without actually making this huge social commitment to drag somebody all the way into your living space. And so we've got these kind of moments dotted throughout Terrace House, whether it's on the street and the connection between levels and the passive surveillance, or the place to just perch near the entry with your community or somebody, a stranger passing by, or whether it's the little enclaves, the community within the community. So the 4 apartments opening on it to their own little shared space within the broader community, or the big shared roof deck with the incredible views that will never be built out because of heritage in the area.
1 minute.
And that means that, great, that means that you have these solitary, quiet spaces. You don't need to drag people into your private spaces, and they can be chaotic if you've got kids without you being ashamed. In terms of planning, bikes are right near the entry, so sustainable travel is super easy to use. In terms of efficiency, the centre of the building between those red lines is all identical up the building. So we've put really rational structure and servicing to really drive down costs. Roof terrace, there's some 3-bedroom homes as well, and really resilient raw materials. So we get somebody like Griff, who's in apartment 104, who's an artist, who just then cut loose and started putting the artwork in the stairwell. In terms of sustainability, a whopping 8.1 star building, 11 kilowatts of solar, absolutely fossil fuel free, no gas, all electric. We've got an embedded energy network that's buying green energy cheaper than you can buy coal. Induction cooktops, electric barbecue on the roof, external roller blinds, low VOC everywhere. Insane air tightness. Through construction, we actually doubled what we were looking for in terms of air tightness. And the big move here is that every single apartment has an energy recovery unit. So we're constantly moving fresh air, but we're not losing energy through that process. We missed the light wells, dropping the light well temperature of about 10 degrees, and that's where we draw our energy recovery air from. No air conditioning, but we've got it pre-provisioned, because in a climate crisis and with needing to house elderly, we can't build no AC buildings. So it's pre-provisioned, so it's really easy to put one in if it is uncomfortable or the health need requires it. No heating, because this building is so bloody efficient that our calculations show that just all of the toys and human activity in the building will actually heat it up. That said, it's super easy to plug in a really efficient electric panel.